everyone. Hi, amigas. Welcome to our Amigahood Community Action Circle for today. I'm Ayla Jallo. I'm your community lead here and in the Amigahood. And just thank you so much for being here. As you know, we have been hosting these sessions since the raid started happening a couple of weeks ago. And we just wanted to hold space for you all, have a safe space for you to, talk freely about how you're feeling, what are you holding that maybe you would like to name or allow yourself to be seen. This is your space here. This is an informal space, this is just a collective conversation. But we have been inviting some guests to hold space and talk about some topics that are very important for our community. And so, with that said, I would like to introduce today's guest, Leslie Priscilla. She's a first generation non Black Chicana with Raramuri lineage. She is a mother to three bicultural children and a certified parent coach with over 16 years of experience. Leslie shares her medicine by offering coaching, workshops, support, and advocacy for Latinx and Chicanx families locally, nationally, and internationally via Latinx parenting. Leslie's vision is a movement rooted in children's rights, social and racial justice, the individual and collective practice of nonviolence and reparenting, intergenerational and ancestral healing, cultural sustenance, and the active decolonization of oppressive practices in our families towards liberation. So we are in good hands. Today's session is all about, how do we navigate parenting with all that is happening? If you are a parent or some sort of caregiver, maybe you have nieces and nephews or just young people in your life that you are really thinking about, especially, with everything that's happening and just wondering, how can I create a better world for them? How can I explain to them what's going on? And how can I tend to myself knowing that I have to be present for this young person or young people? This is your space to get some real-time support, guidance, but also know that we are all going through it together. So while Leslie is an expert and she is excellent at what she does, she's also a mother, so she shares both perspectives. So with that said, I'm going to turn over the mic to Leslie. Thank you, Leslie, for being here.
Side note, can I ask you to share how we know each other?
Yeah, so I was actually Leslie's assistant back in the day, like 5 years ago. So I feel very strongly about the Latinx parenting mission. And because yeah, I worked closely with her. And so it's a full circle moment to be able to invite you to this space here in Amigahood. You have been a part of the Amigahood for quite some time too. So intersecting communities. Um,
Mm.
yeah, but Leslie, thank you so much. And amigas, I just want to let you all know, the chat is open for you. Whatever, anything you want to reflect on, anything you want to express, if you have any questions. But of course, yes, it is definitely okay that you're eating, Dr. Guzman. Like I said, this is, your safe space, unfiltered. And also, you can come off mute and ask questions in real time. This is a conversation. So, Leslie, I will go ahead and give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayla. It's really, really special to be here with all of you. I think I am in need of so much space holding for what's happening. I have therapy tomorrow. I'm so excited. I am so I'm like, oh my gosh, is it today? Oh no, it's not today, it's tomorrow. Um, but I just wanted to, I when Ayla asked me, I said yes immediately. Usually I have to, really consider whether it's something I really want to do because I tend to get pulled in a lot of directions. I'm a mother myself. As Ayla mentioned, I have three little ones who are 13, 7, and 6. And so, this is very much something that is in our conversations right now. I was sharing with Ayla earlier, we have the National Guard that is posted up in our downtown currently. We have had several raids happen, several what I'm calling abductions happen really close to where I live, about 2 minutes driving from where I live. And so it's been very heartbreaking, right? And so I see a lot of what's happening right now is parenting through a lot of the heartbreak, right? Parenting through a lot of the rage, parenting through a lot of the grief that we are experiencing individually and collectively. And keep in mind that we all have lives, like we all have a lot of other stuff that's happening. It's not just that this is the only thing, right? We are sisters, we are daughters. That's a big part of who I am, is my mom's daughter, right? And how I show up to support her. My sister as well, my dad. And so I know that all of our identities kind of converge in different ways, but I think that seeing what's happening to people who look like my family right now, seeing what's happening to families that are my neighbors right now, it's bringing up to the surface like a lot to work with. I guess I'll put a little bit of a positive light on it, just because I believe we can work through it, right? I believe, like, I have to keep knowing that we can work through it within our parent relationships, within our all of our relationships, because my mom, a lot of people don't know this, but my mom for a while, who knows that I'm in a meeting right now. My mom for a little while supported Trump, and as an immigrant, brown, like 63-year-old woman, that was very surprising to me. But unfortunately, a lot of people in our community um, have had to align with certain systems, right? They've had to align with certain systems, and white supremacy is one of those systems, patriarchy is one of those systems, and other things that he represents in the way of his conservatism. You see a lot of our families also have very conservative Christian values, and that's understandable given our histories. But I wanted to, yeah, just kind of open the conversation. I think I will do a grounding, Ayla, if that's okay, so that we can kind of just sit with what our intentions are for being here today. Sometimes it's really helpful for us to just name, what our intention is, but I want to do it in an intentional way, by doing a grounding that I like to do, that helps me too, just as a facilitator. So you can definitely keep eating, Dr. Erika. You don't have to. You can totally. And then for those of you that are coming in and don't have your cameras on, I always really encourage that our cameras are on, just because it helps me to kind of really sense the community here, right? And that meets a lot of need for me. Not that everything has to be for me, but I know that if I'm feeling that, then other people might also be feeling that too. And so I always just want to encourage that. If it's not possible, it's never required. I don't, I'm like, hey, Mari, turn your, I'm not, that's not gonna be what happens. But the way that I like to center is I like to place one hand over my heart. Sometimes I'll place both of them. So if you do this and that feels good and you want to stay there, that's okay. But what I also like to do is place one over my womb space, my belly space, my belly friend, as my 6-year-old calls it, as he squishes it. And you may notice, if you're participating with me in this, that your breathing may start to slow naturally. I notice that my voice starts becoming a little lower. I notice that my breath is longer when I do this, almost automatically now, because I've done it so many times. So if your eyes start to close, you can let them. You might start to feel ways that your body might be holding some tension. So I just invite you to start bringing breath into that space, wherever that tension may be living. Could be your lower back, your hips, your thighs, your calves, your back, your shoulders, anywhere you may feel like it would benefit that area to feel some softness there. Your jaws hold a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that we take 3 collective deep breaths, and I'm going to lead the breaths for us. But I want us to do them with a little bit of structure. So I'm going to ask that we breathe in for about 4 seconds, that we hold for about 5 seconds, and that we release for about 6 seconds. So it'll be 4, 5, and 6. As you are inhaling, I want you to imagine that you're walking up to a plateau. And on that plateau, you will hear or see or feel your intention as you hold that breath. Any intention you hold for being in the space, any intention you hold for your children, any intention that you hold for the world, any intention. This is a prayer. A lot of our abuelas taught us well when they taught us to pray. So I want us to think of it as an intention or a prayer. And when we go down that plateau on our 6-second out breath, I'm going to ask that we shed anything that may not be serving us in this moment. Any frustrations, any rushing around that we had to do this morning, any friction that exists in our relationship right now, anything that just may need to be set aside for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and begin our breath right here. When we inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold. Release. Second breath in. Last breath. Just let your breath come back more organically. Before we stop our breathing, our meditation, before we open our eyes, I want us to just try to really generate in yourself a sense of deep gratitude, acknowledgement, and appreciation. And we can extend that gratitude, acknowledgement, and appreciation to ourselves for being here today, for showing up, for our children, for anything that you would like to thank yourself for right now. We extend that gratitude to our inner Nina, who she's there. She's there. She's there to show us the importance of joy, the importance of play, what we still may need to grieve from that time. We honor her. We conjure gratitude for our ancestors, our elders, our abuelos, generations back, all of their labor, all of their sacrifice, all of their joy, all of their grief, all the lessons passed down, all the values, all of their sorrows, all the treasure. We offer deep gratitude for Madre Tierra, Pachamama, Mother Earth, Tonantzin. We honor her, we thank her for her nourishment, her well of abundance that she offers us, the nurturance, the elementos that she gives us. And finally, we offer gratitude to the Círculo, to the space, to everybody who is present here today, imagining that we are all connected in a web, that we are all a part of the same sphere, that we are here guided and protected by all of our lineages, all of our ancestors, the loving ones. So when you feel ready, you can start to slowly come back. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to drink some water. So I invite folks to drink some water throughout this entire hour, because at night sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really parched. And then I realize I haven't had a lot of water today. What am I doing? And so we have to just continue to hydrate, right? That's a very like simple non-tip tip, but like you must continue to hydrate, especially as all of this collective grief is coming to the surface. You must continue to meet it with replenishing of your awa, right? So I can share, I guess, a little bit more about the work that I do. I think in the grounding, like I brought in some of the things that I talk about. I do a lot of now more reparenting work and ancestral healing work, intergenerational trauma work. My interest is in how all of those things intersect with systems, right? How all of those things intersect with the histories of our peoples. I started doing this work in 2013 when I met a woman, my teacher, Ruth Beaglehole, who has since passed away, sadly. I don't know if you saw Ayla, but one of my teachers passed away this year, just a few months ago. And she really was the one. Hang on. Okay, thank you. She really was the one that came and said, parenting is not parenting, it's about social justice for children, and that was like, and so that kind of like opened doors for me to walk into and start really understanding some of the intersections of what we're experiencing and why it's so hard to parent, why it was so hard for our parents to parent us and what they were experiencing in their times, right? And so I like seeing it like we're weaving. I like seeing it like we're kind of making this like collective trenza between us. I really like that visual of like all of us kind of weaving together. This was woven, right? This was at some like vintage shop at one point, but it's just so well made, like it's woven so beautifully. I really, I see that we're kind of making something here too, right? And I find that there's no shortage of need when it comes to support for parents and people who are in relationship with children. I don't think that the environment that we're in right now is super amenable to parenting in ways that, especially for Black and Brown folks, right? Especially for Black and Brown folks, I feel that it is very challenging because we are experiencing so much right now, all of us. So my invitation is to get to know you all. And I would love to be in like, I think I'm spotlit right now, spotlighted. So if we could come back maybe a little bit so I'm not spotlighted. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So that way we're in círculo, right? That way we can see each other. My teacher Ruth wouldn't even start a session until we could all see each other. Like we would, oh my God, can we please get started? It's been like 30 minutes. And so she's like, no, we got to make sure that we can see each other. And that's an Indigenous practice. That's something that she learned from the Maori people in New Zealand. And that's something that I recognize is also very present here in the Indigenous peoples of this land. And so, in an effort to decolonize and re-indigenize, we want to make sure that we can all see each other. So I would love to hear what your intention is for being here today. Anything that came up for you during your, oh no, I'm frozen. Okay, I'm not frozen anymore. Anything that came up for you when we were doing our breathing, anything that is on your mind. The question that Ruth would ask is, what is alive? Right? What is alive for you right now? Mentally alive. So I'm very like fluid with it. Sometimes people don't like it. They're like, I need structure. And I'm like, yeah, but like you gotta make your own. You gotta figure out like what structure works for you, right? And where you want to focus. So intention and uh, what's alive? What is alive in all the ways? Sensation too. You can be like, oh my God, I'm carrying like a lot of tension right here. That's so valid. You know, that's so important to say, to name, to speak. So I'm gonna be quiet now, and I'm going to ask that folks share your intention and anything else.
Hi, everyone. I'll start. My name is Erica. Leslie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And is it Isla? I'm sorry. Thank you so much for hosting. But yeah, I think what came up as you were doing that beautiful grounding for me was just a lot of gratitude for being able to connect with community, even if we don't necessarily know each other. I'm really, really grateful for spaces where we can connect sort of like on the same level. Do you know what I mean? Especially for spaces that allow and that acknowledge just the horror that we've been living the past what month? Like 26 days has it been? And so just that, I'm just really grateful for community. I think I'm learning and I'm forcing myself to lean in to community even when I don't feel like it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Where do you live?
Sorry, yeah, I'm in Orange County, North Orange County, very red area.
You
So
know,
it's,
I'm in Santana, and so we're
yes,
close.
you know. Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
let's talk after.
Oh,
There's a lot of work here.
yeah.
Thank you so much. And you're a mama also.
I am. I don't know if you heard him in the background. He's a
Yeah.
4-year-old, but he's overhearing a lot of conversations recently between my husband and I, my mom and I. You know, we talk a lot. There's the before we leave the house, do you have your passport? Do you have your real ID? And it's terrifying. And so he overhears these conversations and he asks, he's in that stage where he's like, ¿Por qué? Um,
Mhm.
you know, why do we need this? Why do we need that? And I'm just like, I want to tell you, but you're 4.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna take notes if that's okay. Because as you were talking, I like we won't dive in right now, but I wanted to just make a note of how we can answer that, right? Like how we can how can we say what we need to say in a way that there's still some level of impact made, right?
Right.
Mm.
Right.
So anyway, we'll come back to that, but I'm going to write it down. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Would anybody else like to share? I think Priscilla, you had taken your mute off. Palabra.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Leslie, so much. I'm like, we're almost tocayas a little bit.
We are. Yes, we are.
Um, but thank you so much. I am part of the We All Grow team, so I work with Ayla on creating these workshops. So thank you again so much for your time and helping us all out. But I'm not a parent, and unfortunately, I think given the state of the world, I have no plans on being a parent. Um, and so I have a few littles in my life. Like for example, my niece, she's 14 and she just turned 14 and she already has gone through a lot of trauma. Her mom, which my cousin I love, she's gone in and out of the prison system. Growing up, she was taken care by her grandparents, and in the past few years, her grandpa passed away due to Alzheimer's. So she was already kind of being his caretaker at a very young age. And just 2 days ago on Sunday, her grandma, my godmother, had a stroke, and she was there when she caught her, like, so it's luckily my godmother is doing well, and I'm very grateful for that. But I just think of all the things that my niece has gone through on top of everything. She's been out there protesting. Her mom will take her out to protest, but it's I noticed with her, she doesn't really like to open up. If I ask her how she's doing, like I don't know how often the adults in her life ask her how she's doing. And she's like, I'm okay. Like she's very quiet. And so I think of how else can I be there for my nieces or my nephews or just, children of friends, being Tia Postiza, but yeah, my intention is to walk out of here knowing how to show up better for the kids. Like I might not be a mom, but I want to be there 110% for the littles in my life. So
Oh, I'm so honored to share your name. I am because and I get very excited. I have like Ayla knows I'm like kind of a spaz and I have ADHD and it's anyway.
Same.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I love that you said Tia Postiza and I love like that you understand your responsibility, right? And I'm just grateful because you know the tias postizas are invaluable for the youth. You know, a lot of times when I ask people who was your influence, right? Who was the person that like really helped you to feel safe and to feel heard and to feel guided, for reasons, whatever those reasons are, sometimes it's not their parents, it's their tias or it's their for me it was like my madrina, right? My madrina, she would drive me to school in the mornings, and my tia Adriana, who is married into the family, but she was like more like a tia for me. She passed away a couple years ago as well. And so that's huge. That's so big, you know, to understand that your relationship to children is a powerful space in which we can more deeply connect with them, which is ultimately what's going to be their power, right? Is that they can deeply connect with people so that, or because they were deeply connected with, right? They're becoming these empathetic people because they were empathized with. And I'm so sorry for everything that this young girl has had to go through, your sobrina. It's una carga, you know, like it's a big carga. So, but just very honored for you to have shared, Priscila. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe a couple more people who would like to share their intentions. I do have some stuff I want to share with you because I know that I do want to give you like, as watery as I am, I do want to like offer you a little bit of earth, right? And just kind of like showing you, I have a presentation that I didn't develop for this. It's from a presentation that I created after the election called What to Tell the Children. And so it just has like some things that we might want to consider, right? And then we'll kind of break into just more conversation. Maybe a couple more people want to share who they are and any intentions. Yes, Elizabeth.
Oh, hi. So, yes, I'm a mom of two. They're 12 and 13. And everything going on hits really close to home because we actually went through this last year. My husband went out to Ciudad Juarez for his immigration appointment. He was out there for 4 months. And it was really hard on my girls. And I feel the tension in my shoulders and my stomach. I'm like just thinking about it, I get so emotional. And you know, it really sucks, like even people close to me to being quiet and you know that's where it hurts. And I tell my husband, like, I feel like the lady from the Titanic movie when, you know, the ship sank and they're going and she's like, stop, we need to go back for our men, that's our men and our kids, and no one says anything. I'm like, that's what I feel. I'm like, I feel like that. So I actually just saw your post like not so long ago, and I'm like signing up right now. I'm like, I need to join this, and I'm like, I need to be a part of this. And yeah, I just feel a little better sharing that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my intention to just hold more like continuous space for parents specifically, and tia postizas if they want to come. But I am so sorry, and I can't imagine how traumatic and how horrible.
It was hard, but
Yeah.
thankfully he's here now. And then all this going on, you know, it's like, dang, like, can we ever get a break?
Yeah. You feel everyone nodding. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I also want to thank you. I'm in Orange County too, so all the time I see, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy she's part of us here, close to home.
I wish more people would be like, hey, I'm here. So I can be like, oh, cool, because we're planning a children's march in a couple weeks and things like that. And so I would love to be able to like know the local who's here that like knows the work that would want to participate in things like that. So thank you, Elizabeth. Reach out to me after. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alguien más? Anybody else want to share an intention?
I would
Or
like to share, Leslie.
yeah, please.
So I have he's 20 months. And he was born a couple of days before everything happened in Gaza. As you can imagine, my postpartum experience was met with also a lot of guilt because of what I was feeling, knowing that there were mothers, in Palestine who um, would give anything to like go through to feel what I was feeling and to have their babies close. So that's like the beginning of my motherhood, right? And then um a year later, Trump is elected, a couple months later now, this. So, as I'm still very early in my motherhood journey, I would love some tips on how I can uh, look at my mothering as social justice, as you mentioned, how I can keep him safe, but also not let my anxiety hinder his experience of the world and knowing that, I can only protect him so much. Like, what is a healthy amount of exposure, and how do I not give in to my own anxiety where I become like this helicopter parent and he ends up resenting me when he's older?
Yeah, yeah. All so important to be asking, like, and I just want to say that, like, even just the fact that you're asking this, the fact that you all are here, like, there are people with so much privilege that don't have to think about some of these things, right? And I'm not saying that in like a how dare they, let's go, like, go burn their houses down. Like, no, it's just the reality. And I went to Catholic school like my whole life, here in Santana, and then my high school also here in Santana, was mostly white. Like, the population is mostly white. And which is why I talk like this. Like, I adopted this, like, I don't know, I feel like I sound like a valley girl sometimes. I'm like, it's modern day did this to me. But anyway, I just, it's such an intersectioning of like our identities with that too, right? Because you want your son, I want my children to know who they are, right? And to feel strong in that identity. And so the questions that you're asking is about identity also, and it's about how do you protect him and make him feel secure in who he is and what he can contribute to in the world. I can share that oh, thank you, Joss. She said, I don't hear any Valley Girl. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. I get insecure sometimes. Okay. If you sound like a Valley Girl, it's fine. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, but I think, Ayla, with what you're sharing, I'm like, it's so important and so beautiful to ask those questions because there are families, unfortunately, that are not asking those questions necessarily, or that are asking their own questions with their own ideologies, and which has led to kind of where we are, right? And in the world that we're kind of finding ourselves in. And I can't imagine postpartum during that time. And I'm so glad everyone decides to call me when I'm facilitating. It's great. But yes, we'll get to that. And I do want to share just some things that I think will be helpful to keep in mind as we're kind of moving along the ages. I have a 13-year-old, and I feel that the foundation that I set when she was really young, I'm seeing kind of the fruits of that labor right now. Now that she's a 13-year-old, and seeing the things that she's interested in, and she's interested in like constitutional rights, and she's interested in, she doesn't like the neighborhood where her dad is because it's extremely privileged, and she's like, this just feels detached. Like, she's sensing things too, right? And she comes back into my area of the city, and she's just like, oh, I like there's unhoused people, but there's like eloteros and like floreros and like all these things. And so she's feeling the richness of that, like the richness of the cultural experience that I'm trying to give her. And so in all of this, like, I just want to say that like our culture and our identity is the anchor, like it is like in knowing who we are and in knowing where we have come from and in knowing what our ancestors have overcome, like that is our strength. I'm doing a lot of ancestor work right now because I need to remember that there's always been hard shit happening, like there's always been like, how do I have this conversation with my kids? And sometimes it wasn't how do I have the conversation, but how do I avoid the conversation because it's too painful to look at the reality? Or how do I just keep trying to make sure that this child grows up and stays alive? Like that all often was the priority for a lot of our families, right? I just want this child to stay alive, to not be taken from me. And so what's so painful about what's happening right now is that a lot of that ancestral trauma and what happened to our Indigenous and African ancestors is stirring. It's kind of, it's kind of rising to the surface. So we have to deal with the emotional, we have to deal with the somatic, because all of that is living inside of our bodies, right? All of that is living right here. And so I didn't mean to go into like a huge tangent with your comment, Ayla, but I think each of you have opened many doors right now that that I just know that we'll see each other again and we'll have all of the conversations. But I did want to share, if it's okay, a little bit of the presentation that I intend to share. It's called What to Tell the Children, which I'm holding on the 12th, but I'm happy to share some of it here just so that we feel a little more grounded. Let me open it real quick. And you're going to see me like pass by slides. That's just because we don't have all the time today, but I will want to just go to some that I think will be helpful. This is me and my little ones a couple years ago. My mama came here when she was 14 years old. She was deported twice. One of the times that she came back, she twisted her ankle as she was climbing a mountain. And she talks about that experience and trying to come. I'm like, who would do that to themselves, right? Unless they felt like they absolutely had to. And so I'm very, very connected to her experience as an immigrant, having faced the trauma of immigration. She, the things that she's described, I'm like, I don't know if I could survive that, like they have gone through so much. And also the trauma of living in a white supremacist country. Like that's been very, very challenging for her, for all of us. These are some of my maestros. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This was a previous dedication. We asked this already. I love this quote and I want to share it with you all because I feel like I come back to it a lot. And it was, I think, 2020 that Jasmine wrote this and shared it. Jasmine Banks is the creator of Parenting is Political on Instagram. She's become a very close colleague of mine. She wrote, "Do not despair. We are raising the generations who will tear apart the version of the United States that never served those of us closest to the pain. We have at every moment a choice to raise those who will transform history or those who will repeat it." And so it's just a very anchoring quote for me. So let's talk about our role as adults in the lives of our children. And I want you to add additional ones. Okay, so it's not just gonna be me saying it's these three, but these are kind of openers. So number one, to meet needs for ourselves, right? To meet needs for ourselves, to meet needs for one another, whether that is our children, our partner, our family members, my mom. We also have a role to support, in their understanding of certain ideas and certain concepts. Schools are a relatively new invention, right? Like the school system as we know it only came in the last 100 years, right? And so before that, that didn't mean that we weren't educated. That didn't mean that there wasn't education. The education came in the home, right? In the home is where the education happened. And so I want us to see ourselves as teachers. Like we may not be homeschooling officially, right? We may be sending our children to school, but I really want us to think of ourselves as having this need to support, this need to support our children in learning some of the things that they may not learn in school. My daughter goes to a homeschool enrichment center. Homeschooling is usually pretty privileged of a space. Folks that homeschool are often white or just come from a lot of financial privilege. And therefore, we've had a lot of experiences where certain things are not being said, right? Certain things are not being named in some of the spaces. And so because of that, she and I have conversations constantly, where I'm having to educate, right? I'm having to teach her. I feel very grateful that we homeschool, because on the days that I do have my children and they're home with me, I try to be very intentional. We're going to watch this. We're going to talk about this. We're going to go to this place. One of the things that I really want to do soon is take her to the Museum of Tolerance, and we can do that on a Monday and talk about it, and what happened to the Jewish people during the Holocaust. And so that is one of our roles, right, is to offer them that space where they can explore things that, and I'm not going to like feed them, or what's the saying? It's like, I'm not going to make you drink from a fire hose, right? I'm not going to make them drink from a fire hose. I'm not going to be like, okay, now you have to know everything, all the time. But these things come up in context. We were just driving down to their dad's house and the military is on our streets, right? Like, Mama, what's that big car? Mama, what are you watching, right? Because sometimes we're on our phone. Well, what is that? What is that? And then I have to decide, is this something that I want to show them? Is this something that I might want to put my phone away for a little while? That has to happen in like that 1 second of time, right? And so the more prepared we are for when those questions come up, not just our phones, but other things, outside of the ice raids, it's things like sex and, things that maybe our parents didn't really model for us how to have those conversations, maybe didn't have to sometimes. So these are just some of the rules. Again, I ask that we add to this. Would anybody like to add anything to the role that we hold as adults for our children? I'm just going back to the comments. Madeline, I'll be in Portland in December for a week doing some work. So please reach out. Hi, Alex. Thank you. Living in Anaheim, work in Santa Ana. Okay. All of you reach out to me after. Thank you. Okay. So what questions are our children asking? What are they seeing? What have we navigated so far? What concerns are present? We heard, just from your stories, the question of like, why is this happening? Right. I'm going to stop the share just for a little bit so we can have this conversation. The question around, why is this happening? I have found myself more often than not saying, I don't really know. I have ideas, and I think it's a lot of things, but I don't really have one answer for that. And so that might feel like that's just depending on like what the question is exactly, right? But one of the things I want to share is, let's get comfortable with not knowing sometimes. We can ask the questions together, obviously, depending on their ages. But I wanted to ask you, what else is coming up for your children? What are your children seeing? What are they mentioning? What are they talking about? I know this is going to range, depending on the age that they are. I know, Ayla, you're probably not, like, the toddlers are not talking about these things on the playground. Would anybody like to share? Elizabeth.
Yeah, my daughter's actually, they are pre-teenagers, pre-teen, and they do play Roblox, and they'll share it on there, how they're doing the protesting, they go, and then we actually went to a protest, and even that, like you mentioned, we don't know why things are happening. When we came back, my daughters both started crying. They were crying, and I think it just brought back all of those emotions from the year before when everything. So I think it hurts them. It hurts them too. They know what it felt like. They know, everything that's been going on. And there's been times also that there's certain videos, like I'll be watching, they're like, what is it? And they're like, oh my God, again. And, sometimes I'll show them, and then other times I'm like, oh my God, because even I can't, it's too much for me. And even with their friends, like one of my daughter's friends, her mom's also in the system, and she's scared for her, and like she doesn't want to let her go, and it hurts me because I feel like kids shouldn't be going through the pain like this, and so I know they're talking about it too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to share?
I think one thing that is coming up for me, I I used to live in Texas and I live in LA, well, Long Beach. And all my friends in Texas are having babies or have had babies in the past like 2 or 3 years. And when I talk to those friends and checking in on them and how they are, they they and I understand why they tune out, but they're like, I'm just tuned out. I don't want to even look at the news. I don't know what's going on. And it's not from a place of like, oh, I just don't want to know. They're like, I don't want to look at what's happening in the news and transfer that negative energy to my baby, especially if they're breastfeeding. Um, so for me, I'm like, you know what? That tells me I need to show up, either a protest, do whatever I need to do to show up for the moms and my friends that can't go out there for the sake of protecting their energy. Um, that's just one thing that's come up for me. So
Yeah, I think that is very relatable, right, with the parents, where it's like sometimes my partner Fernando is very public. He's a political educator as well, and he is constantly watching like YouTube videos and news, and like I process differently because I can't hear or see news without it moving through my body, right? I feel like sometimes men are very like they can keep it here and kind of compartmentalize it a little bit better. It hits me like just like, oh, and so I think we have to know not all parents will feel that, right? Not some parents will be able to look at the news and still parent okay. And so I think it has to do just with our individual capacity, but I really want to celebrate your understanding again, right, of knowing what your role is in that. I would not, right, if my friend is breastfeeding, and actually I've had a few friends that have had babies in the last couple of years as well. And so my kids are a little older now. My youngest is 6. And so I have more capacity to check in on them, to visit them, to have dinner and things like that. And so that is so nourishing and so necessary for parents right now. I think other moms here can agree, that's so supportive. There was one thing that you said that I really wanted to comment on. I don't remember, but yeah, I think, when it comes to parents, I just give the most compassion, because really the work that they're doing is like the front lines of the world that we're building, right? And so their daily interactions, like our daily interactions with our children and the way that we're moving about things with them. This is from, Gabor Mate has said this, Palestinian friend of ours has said this, but we want to make sure that they feel safe, right? That they, number one, feel safe, because we in our brains can process things, and we can also compartmentalize. Even though I'm feeling it somatically, I can still say, okay, I'm going to put my phone down and I'm going to, do this. But kids often will only kind of experience it and not be able to cognitively like understand some of these things, right? And so we do have to be very careful. And I'm not saying that we're going to preserve their innocence and like never talk about these things, because I don't think that in this country you can preserve a child's innocence, because look around, right? If your eyes are open, there's something that we're going to have to explain to children. And parents have a really big job to do. I think we have a really big job to do. And I struggle to give myself permission to just say this is enough. It's just enough to be present in the hammock with my son on Snapchat filters. Like, that's enough for today. knowing that when I'm not there, I am doing other things, right? I am organizing, I am working with the community in other ways. And so that's going to look differently for everybody, right? I want to caution folks to not compare themselves to other people right now. Because it's only going to add to that like soul wound, right? To that like soul injury that we feel here. If you leave to Sequoia, my friend is leaving to Sequoia for like a week on Thursday. I'm like, hell yeah, get the hell out of here. Like leave. We don't, no, not like that. But I'm like, good. I was just telling Ayla, I was like, I need to be in a body of water. And so we have to be nourished. And there are enough of us that the work will continue if we take breaks. The work will continue if we are just able to stay present, do something joyful with our children. Obviously, we're going to bring in books about different things from the library. A lot of times it's like, oh, this resource. It's like, just make that a part of your daily, just make it a part of your daily. Notice things when you're watching their TV shows that they like to watch, point things out. Like it all has to be within context, and it has to be within their context, right? I don't intend to like sit down and be like, today we're learning about this very important thing that you must learn about. Usually with my 13-year-old, especially, that stuff has just come up in context. And then we're like, oh, I'll say, I don't know enough about this. Let's go figure it out together, And so a lot of it is going to be co-learning, and just having that very, very strong foundation in that relationship, right? One of the things that has, I was going to say, saved me, my daughter's, my co-parent is a Trump supporter. It became, Ayla, I don't know if I ever told you all the details around, because Ayla was with me as my assistant when I was still married to him. So I don't remember what you remember, but he has different ideas, right? He has different ideas. He has different perspectives. His family has different perspectives. And I share my children with him half of the time. And so for me, knowing that they go into environments where there's going to be opposite information shared, I have had to be very, very learned around the things that I want to talk about, right? I have had to be very, what's the word? Just very like structured sometimes, right? And again, I'm saying all of this comes up in context, but if I'm going to engage in a conversation about it, then I better know what I'm saying, and if I don't know what I'm saying, then I better say, I'm not sure. Hold on, let me pause right there. I'll come back to this with you, and I will come back to it, right? And so given the context, my context right now, it's really beautiful to witness how the foundation that I've laid with her, with my 13-year-old in particular, she's my oldest, how that is manifesting right now, how she's able to see the contrasts. Big part of that is that identity work, right? Is reminding her who she is, where she comes from, what our people have endured, what they continue to endure all around us, and to give her space to figure out what her role is in that. Right? So we're just creating the space for them. We're not making them drink from fire hoses, right? We're just creating the space. And we're bringing in whatever's comfortable for us right now to bring in. If that's nothing on a Tuesday, then that's nothing on a Tuesday. Like, it's okay, right? Your nervous system is really important. Your body and your sensations are really important. What are your protocols when you're feeling stimulated, dysregulated, overwhelmed, overexposed, right? What are those protocols? Do we have protocols? Have I written them out in a while? Same with trauma healing. It's like, okay, you got to have your tools, like, but we got to use them. I was sharing with my partner yesterday. I'm like, when I was little, I was Catholic. And so I used to kneel by the bed and pray. I really did. I was like that. I was like, I'm like, and And I'm like, I still do. I do it in other ways. You know, I'm like, now I'll do it in the shower. I'll say my prayers in the shower. I have a ritual that I, you know, like to cleanse and then just very intentionally generate some of my prayers. And so if that's a tool, right? I wish we had more time because I'm looking at the clock and I'm just like angry at it because it went by so fast. And I feel like I've been talking and I want you all to talk more. But yeah, anyway. I'm going to share one more screen that I think will be helpful in terms of having the conversations. Right. And this was like some examples here around, this is all going to be in the workshop on the 12th. And so if you want to come to that, we're going to have an extended amount of time to be able to talk about some of the stuff. But this is just some of the things that, and these are going to be changed every time that I've done it. I've changed them a little bit just to kind of be more, well, I did it for Palestine, I did it for the election, like different questions are being asked at different times. Really important to consider age, right, and cognitive development, obviously, their emotional maturity, any previous foundation that we have set in discussing difficult topics. And then we're considering our confidence and the trust in ourselves. A lot of this is like, why do I feel uncomfortable talking about this stuff? Oh, because I don't feel confident, right? I'm not feeling confident in talking about it. So what do I need to increase my confidence? A lot of times that's information or conversations with people that know some of these things. And so just feeling safe to learn more, you know, to increase that confidence. You know, I really feel like it's made a difference to feel confident in my parenting. Like that seems so simple, but I knew very early on that I needed to learn as much as I could about how to have a good relationship with my children because I didn't have a good relationship with my parents. And so I was always wanting to like make sure that they received a different experience. But in doing all of that, it's made me feel a lot more confident, right, in having those conversations. Consider your energy, your capacity, and your support circle. This is a support circle, right? This is your círculo, which is beautiful. Kids will process information differently at different ages. Understanding brain development and the nervous system right now is really important. Young children, very concrete, focus on emotions, be careful. My son gave some like inaccurate information about some of the things that I was saying to his dad. And his dad was said, like, why are you telling Emilio that Starbucks is bombing Palestine or something like that, you know, because we're boycotting Starbucks. And I was explaining, and so this is almost 2 years ago now, and so he was much younger at that time, and so what he heard around our boycott of Starbucks was not what I said. And so you want to make sure at this age that they can repeat it back to you, right? That, okay, what are you hearing? Something that really helps a lot with some of this stuff is like imagery. I'm not saying show them all of the things that are happening. I'm saying draw things out for them, right? Just like, okay, here's a fruit vendor, right? He came from Mexico because he had, right? And so you're just kind of drawing things out. We have like whiteboards all over the house, and notebooks too. You could just like, when you're sitting there, kind of just draw things out for them. Kids are very concrete, so imagery helps a lot. Older children, they're developing their understanding of cause and effect. This is why, you know, when they're asking why more often, and really wanting to understand. Teenagers, you can have a lot more conversation with them, as you remember, as when you were a teenager, right? That's when your brain kind of started to open up to more abstract thinking, and your own opinions that are independent sometimes of ours, right? My daughter has had to call me the other day. She was like sitting with her legs spread wide open, and I was like, cierra las piernas. I was like, close your legs. And she was like, why does that make you uncomfortable? And I was like, oh shit. You're right. Like, that did make me uncomfortable. That's not you, that's me, right? And so we have to be okay with them having their own ideas, right? And notice our own rigidities in those conversations. Let me see. So our goal is not to overwhelm. We're wanting to encourage critical thinking. We're wanting to frame conversations with hope and action, right? So if a child is seeing everything that's happening and they're like, what can I do? Okay, what can I do? I want to help. I had shared a post on Instagram that talked about bringing them to protests and safe ways to be able to do that. I think I had it up here. So it was this one. And so, that's a possibility, but they can also just like the elotero came by a couple days ago and my children came out and I was like, saluda, right? Like be friendly. And even just those interactions is like what they can do, just be polite, be like, be a good neighbor, right? To your neighbors. Make eye contact with people. Like these are very simple things, but they're meaningful too, right? It's meaningful for kids to know that there's power in them just having basic empathy, basic acknowledgement of each other, and of adults as well, right? So I'm gonna stop the share for a little bit because I want to see where you're at in terms of how you're feeling. I know that we're like at time. I'm good to stay for a little while longer, Ayla. I don't know what the rules are in terms of going over, but
Yeah, you can go over, I'd say, until like 15 minutes after or so, or however long you're able to. But amigas, if you have to jump, that's totally fine.
I don't, but Priscilla had to get going. Okay, I'll see everybody who had to leave later. But what's coming up for you as you're hearing some of this? What are you thinking about? What are the feelings that are present? What is alive?
So this is actually super reassuring for me just because it's really good to be reminded of where cognitively children are at. I think that we don't, or at least I don't always think about like just that specific fact. I have a 4-year-old and recently, my husband and I were talking and I said the word immigrants and he said, "What's that? What's an immigrant?" And I was like, "Whoa." Like and I gave him the fact like this is an immigrant and mommy and daddy are immigrants, grandma and grandpa are immigrants, and we gave him just basic facts, and he was like, "We're immigrants," and then he just sort of moved on, and I was like I just felt like, was that okay? Was that enough even? And my husband and I were just like, okay, so like let's watch out more about like what we say and how we say it. But this just, I mean, just remembering that, okay, he's in a very concrete stage right now, that was enough. That was enough. And
Yeah.
and that's really it. So that was very reassuring for me to remember right now.
Yeah. I think I'll speak for myself. I tend to overcomplicate things in my brain. But it really comes down to just like being, this is why the nervous system regulation is so important, because you will be able to attune to whatever the child is needing if you are attuned to your own needs, right? So the confidence that's generated from understanding what your needs are, what your sensations are, what your thoughts are. I'm thinking this, right? What your emotional experiences are, like your consciousness, and that word, because sometimes it's used in other ways, but your conocimiento, I'll say conocimiento, your conocimiento of yourself, right? Your conocimiento of yourself is what is going to set the foundation for all of the conversations, whether it is about the raids or whether it's about, school shootings once they become aware that those things are things that happen, right? If they aren't already. And so those conversations are going to be built on a strong foundation. And that foundation is your attunement to what they're needing in those moments. But it's a long process and we need a lot of support around it. We need a lot of support around it because I didn't have that template as a child, right? I'm giving it, but I had to give it to myself first before I could offer it to my children. And so, yeah, thank you, Dr. Erika. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else? What is alive in you right now? What are you thinking about?
I'll share. Something that's coming up for me. So I'm actually Muslim, and one thing that we believe is that children come with their own, the term is risk, but it means like their own provision, their own wealth, their own like, they God already decided how they will be provided for, Um, so a lot of that is just like having faith that your children will be okay, with or without you. And so, as I'm like listening to this conversation, I'm starting to feel more grounded in the knowing that, my children and all children, their fate has already like their life story has already been written. It's just up to them to walk it, to live it. And so as a parent, my job is to just guide, um, and do the best that I can, but they're gonna be who they were always meant to be anyway. And so, I know, everyone here has their own belief system, but I think in thinking about, our own rituals and how we ground ourselves, that's something that has come up for me, and I feel more at ease. And also that quote that you shared, from, I'm sorry, what's her name? Jasmine, about how, the kids will be, I forgot exactly what the quote was. Uh,
Repairing this version of the United States. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. So, I feel confident in that, like, as long as we're doing our best and we strive to raise good human beings, it's not gonna look perfect. There's no perfection doesn't exist. Um, but as long as we do our best at our job of parenting or caregiving, looking out for the little people in our lives, whether we birth them or not, um, this version of the United States will always get better because of our efforts. And so, yeah, our job, it is a big job, and that's why it feels so hard. But the kids will be okay.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I have to like think sometimes I'm like, oh, they're gonna be okay. And then I think about like, how the Proud Boys also have like children in their lives. And I think,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, like, but that is why we have to be a force, you know what I mean? And I don't mean it in like we're gonna just start crashing over. Like, I think all of us together are this force that is necessary to happen to move into the paradigm that we're walking into, right? Which is not a colonial paradigm, which is a paradigm of Indigenous values, which is a paradigm of balance, which is a paradigm of having relationship with the earth, right? These things are things that we have to really consciously be like pushing forward. And I think what you mentioned, Ayla, about the rituals is so important because that is what grounds us in our practices, whether that's our parenting practice, our spiritual practice, our work practice, right? We have certain rituals, our morning practice. In the morning, I wake up, I make my coffee in a very specific way. That's a ritual, right? And so those are the things that are going to be our protocols. They're going to be our anchors. They're going to be what holds the vision of the paradigm that we're walking into, right? We have to be rooted as much as possible in our identity, in our ancestry, in our intentions, in a practice of reflection, in our rituals, right? It's about ser arraigado, right? Like really rooted. And so these conversations, these spaces, I think are so necessary for that rootedness to take place. And yeah, I'm just like so grateful to have been invited and to meet all of you. I want to continue. I want to continue.
Well, can you share information about how we can sign up for your workshop?
Nice. I'll drop it in the link, in the chat as well, but it's latinxparenting.org/here. This is the first one that's coming up on the 12th. My partner is going to be teaching one that is called Teach Them Young, which is a little bit different. So the What to Tell the Children is definitely a lot more emotion body based, like, it's going to be conversations and like practice around conversations, but it's going to be with like a focus on like where we are also. The Teach Them Young is like, this is what you should make sure that you talk about, if that makes sense, right? So Fernando, my partner, is very, very, very good with his facilitation. So if you can make both, try to come to both. But I shared the what to tell the children, and then I can share the teach them. Yeah. There we go.
And I'll also share this in Amiga Hood too. So if you don't catch the links, I'll make sure that it's shared.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, y'all are doing amazing. Like, I just want to celebrate you for even just showing up, like being willing to engage in this conversation. Yeah, I'm just like, we're doing it. Like, it is happening, you know. It's like it is happening already. So I'm grateful.
Thank you. Well, thank you all too for being here. I know we had to have some people jump, but Leslie, thanks also for your offer to connect with folks who are local to you. What's the best way for them? Is it through Instagram or?
They can reach out here. I would also have them CC our info account, just because Ayla probably remembers that I do not check my email very often. And so that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, if somebody, my current admin, Valeria, is amazing. And she's always like, hey, you know, reminding me about things. So you can email me directly to be super safe. I would CC Valeria.
Great. Well, thank you again, Leslie. This was so nourishing. I think someone said the word nourishing, and I agree. Yes. And it's been also affirming too. And amigas, thank you all for being here again. We'll share information about the next session. We also appreciate you showing up despite the fact that these have been shared very last minute. Know that we're trying to be as proactive slash reactive too, because none of us saw this coming. So we're actively every week thinking about, okay, who can we reach out to bring to the community. So we don't always have so much lead time. So with that said, make sure your notifications are on when on Amiga Hood, so you at least get a mobile notification or an email about what's going on. But our intention is to hold this space weekly, so just be on the lookout for that. And with that said, yeah, we're over time, so we'll end it there. This has been recorded, so we'll be sure to share so that you have some resources to look back on. All right, thank you, everyone.